It's time for Windows Weekly. Paul Thurrott's here, Mary Jo Foley's here, and yes, it's that most wonderful time of the year, time for our Capoppalooza. Microsoft CMO Chris Capossela gets real, gets down, and answers our questions next on Windows Weekly. Windows Weekly comes to you from Twit's LastPass Studios. Securing every access point in your company does not have to be a challenge. LastPass unifies access and authentication to make securing your employees simple and secure, even when they're working remotely. Check out lastpass.com/twit to learn more.
Podcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
This is Windows Weekly with Paul Thurrott and Mary Jo Foley, episode 703, recorded Wednesday, December 16th, 2020. It's a Capossela Christmas. This episode of Windows Weekly is brought to you by Technology Powers X. Learn how technology and IT departments are reshaping their businesses through an original podcast from Dell Technologies. Search for Technology Powers X anywhere you listen to podcasts and download each episode today. And by Tibco. Tibco's connected intelligence platform simplifies the way you capture data, connect applications, and turn decisions into actions. Learn more about how Tibco can unlock the value of your company's real-time data at tibco.com/podcast. And by LastPass. Don't wait till the end of the year to get strong security. Start solidifying your cybersecurity strategy with the award-winning LastPass today. Go to lastpass.com/twit to find out how they can help you. It's time for Windows Weekly, the show where we talk about the latest news from Microsoft. Paul Thurrott from Thurrott.com. Mary Jo Foley from CDNet, all about Microsoft.com. And today, the Elf on the Shelf episode. Oh, I hear him. You want to introduce our special guest? Mary Jo, who you know this elf is?
Yes, we know this elf pretty well. His name is Chris Capossela, and he is Chief Marketing Officer of all of Microsoft. And he always comes on Windows Weekly for our holiday show, which is very much appreciated.
In fact, he comes on enough now that we've given him a special button. I'm going to press it. Woo! And suddenly Chris
look at that. That's impressive.
Yep, it's technology at work. Hello, Chris. Happy holidays.
Nice to see you all. Thanks for having me again.
Good to
December,
see you.
Mid-December seems like the time.
Looks like Mary Jo got you to wear
Microsoft Paint Ugly sweater.
Yeah.
Yes, we got the Paint Ugly sweater this year. I kind of love it. We've done it a few years now. And this one I think could be my favorite.
Stand up a little bit. We want to see.
That's right. I got it. Sort of.
It looks like
that's
there's
pretty
a
nice.
little inoculation tool I see over on your left.
All the tools are on the arms, and I love it because it's an untitled file, so it says Untitled Paint at the corner.
Yeah, it does.
But next year, you know what has to happen, right?
What?
I think Notepad.
Oh,
Yes.
Mary Jo.
I think Notepad also.
Mary Jo's happy.
I can't promise anything, but I assumed you were going to go for a Notepad sweater pitch to me today.
That's hysterical.
Yeah.
Do they don't, I'm going to ask because everybody's going to ask, do they sell those anywhere?
We do sell them, although they're a relatively limited run, but we sell them and the money goes to Girls Who Code.
Oh, that's a great cause.
Which is a cool nonprofit that we've worked with for years. So there's definitely a bunch of interest in them. We're not really in the business of fashion wear or making clothes. But
maybe you should
this one goes.
Yeah. Maybe.
I think this is the first year we're selling it, so that's kind of fun.
Yeah. Is
nice.
it on it's on the store?
It's actually you go to the Windows Instagram feed, and that's where we've sort of posted how you can grab one.
Wow.
You guys sold out so quick, though, right?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
That and Xbox. Those are basically the hard to keep in stock.
Which was more popular, would you say?
Yeah, but they're fun. It's a really fun thing for our Windows fans, and I have to give it back after the show. I don't get to keep it because I think it's going to be. I think it's going to be put to better use than to have it in my house. But I do get to wear it today, so that's kind of great.
Nice.
But thank you for having me, you guys. I appreciate it.
No, we love having
Always a pleasure.
And I think you broke 700 shows or something recently. Is that right?
What is this? This is episode.
This is 703, I think.
703, yeah.
What are we on?
Incredible.
703.
That's amazing. It's actually been sort of a nice consistency in a really tough year, because you've been doing it virtually forever, and so nothing really got disrupted. That
what we
way.
like doing a lot, though, is doing it from shows.
Yeah.
And if you guys could, maybe figure that out.
You want us to put some physical shows
Bring back Ignite,
in?
anything.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a good
Who
topic.
knows?
That's actually on my list of things to talk about today.
Oh, good.
Oh,
good.
that was actually on my list of questions.
Whenever we want to get to that.
Yeah.
Get to it. Let's start
Okay,
talking to Chris. Let's, enough social grease.
Chit chat.
Give him the
dilly-dallying.
tough questions. It's time.
Right.
I know.
Okay.
Well, he usually starts out telling us his hidden gems for the year, and then we save up the
love it.
tough
Chris,
stuff
I
for
know.
later.
Just up front, we're not going to accept Teams as a hidden gem, okay? Just Teams is not.
Not hidden.
We all know Teams.
You know, I don't know if
that's
you
on the
remember.
list.
It was
This
a
is the hidden gem right here.
Oh, there's the sweater.
Yeah.
There it is.
Look at that. Windows Ugly
Yeah.
Sweater. So it's
There you go.
Instagram.com/Windows.
Yeah, thank you.
We
Exactly.
still use this application every single day, every day.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
I'm
He's
not
a
kidding.
paint fan.
Yeah.
No, the inbox apps, you don't think of it. And then when you look at the numbers, it's just huge how many people use Paint or Notepad or, lots of the inbox apps. It's big. There's big reach. With 1 billion devices, you got a lot of people using the things that come with it.
And I love
it's
the
cool.
old school interface you've got here too. This is
It's classic.
Yeah, classic.
It is.
That's a way to put it. Yeah.
But Teams, Paul, Teams was a hidden gem. I don't know if you remember, like 3 years ago. 3 years ago, I said there's this thing, and I think
true.
after I left the show, you guys were like, "What is he talking about? This
I
Teams
think
thing?"
we were.
And it took a few years, but now you're right. I don't think I can call that a hidden gem anymore.
It seems like it's done okay.
Yeah. Maybe.
It's become relatively large. I just to kick us off, the year's just been unbelievable. Obviously for the whole world, and Microsoft sits in this incredibly privileged position where tech has become even more important for people to be able to, work from home and learn from home and play from home. And it's been a challenging year for, I think, any company, including Microsoft. But there's no doubt that a few of the themes that I thought we could touch on, at least on my list, and then we can get to your list, were bolstered by what's going on in the broader world. And I think the most obvious one that you usually spend a little bit of time talking about on the show is just gaming. For me, the gaming, the explosion of hours being played is really, it's unlike anything we've ever seen. And if you go back to April and May of the beginning of this year, when COVID really hit in many countries, we just saw more gaming hours than we'd ever seen in any December. And that's typically when we have the most gaming. And so that, has just continued through the year. And obviously we don't celebrate the fact that we have this pandemic that's driving people to play. We love that people have the opportunity to play and sort of escape and hopefully connect over the internet and enjoy gaming. But I actually think separate from the gaming hours, for me, I've been at the company a really long time, maybe even longer than Mary Jo's been following it. I don't know.
It's a toss-up, I think, there.
It's close. It's close. July 1 will be my 30th. Year anniversary of the company.
Really?
It's crazy.
Wow.
He started when he was
unbelievable.
10.
I know, no kidding,
How is
right?
that possible?
It's crazy. But I do think, and you can, I'd love to hear what you think. I think this has been the most sort of exciting gaming year for Microsoft that we've ever had. And you could argue, hey, getting into the gaming business with Xbox might be bigger. But I don't know, the shift in strategy to Game Pass, to letting people play the games that they want on the devices they want, with the people they want, I think is just such a simple but very powerful shift. And, we're sitting at, I think the last public number we shared was 15 million Game Pass subscribers, which is just, we're just so thrilled by that. And then, Phil and the team, because of Game Pass, we've gone on a real double down on content. And we're up to like 23 content studios, assuming the Bethesda acquisition gets approved, or ZeniMax Media is the name of the parent company. Of course, most gamers think of that as Bethesda Softworks. And so, having 23 different studios building content, continuing to see Minecraft grow, and it's just insane to see the amount of gameplay that Minecraft is still sort of generating. And since the start of the pandemic, we've seen an increase of about 90% in Minecraft multiplayer sessions. And it's been played in literally every country and territory around the world, including Antarctica and even the Vatican City. And I haven't asked who's playing it.
We know who set that up. Padre Father Robert set that up in the Vatican City.
That's right. Yeah, it's Minecraft server.
One of our hosts.
I love that.
Yeah.
132 million people are playing it a month. And so you look at something like Minecraft, which is played incredibly broadly. And then you look at something like Flight Sim, which is a very different type of game. You're not going to get 132 million people playing it a month. But the people who play it, they play it. They're just such avid fans, and they log huge amounts of hours. Gamers have logged 26 million flights, flown more than 1 billion miles, which is, if you do the math, it's about 15 times more than the real life flights taken each day in 2019.
I think it's the only game Mary Jo Foley's ever played is Flight Simulator.
It's the only game I've ever thought like, okay, maybe that's interesting.
Wow.
Yeah. It's it's beautiful, and it's so you got this really broad game with Minecraft, and then you've got this relatively narrow game with Flight Sim, but the people who play it just play it like crazy, and that was fun to see. And then for me, this is the year where there were just a lot of hits that I think were hidden gems. I don't know if Paul or any of
actually, do you mind before if you're going to move off of gaming, just real quickly, if I could just ask one question about that.
Oh, I'm not ready to move to gaming. Yeah, let's go.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, go for it.
Mary Jo sighs heavily.
Yeah, did you hear that?
I was just I feel like often with the pandemic, we talk about things that have changed forever because of the pandemic. So one of the things that Microsoft was very early on was saying, back in March, like, this is the new normal. We're not going back to the way things were. And obviously people will go back to offices and to some degree at some point, but it's almost like the pandemic sped up a trend that might have been happening anyway. And so we're seeing more flexible hours of people working from home and so forth. And do you think that gaming is a bit like that as well? Like, we were already seeing the evolution of gaming to become almost like a sports type thing where people watch it passively, and there's even betting around it and money being made and so forth. I mean, do you think the pandemic accelerated a trend with gaming that was already happening, and that this is the new normal, that we're not going to go back to all those people who are playing games this year? We'll probably, hopefully we'll play less and work more if they can or whatever, but won't drop off entirely.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. I do think it's the new normal. And if we had seen, if we look at just the gameplay, it's just maintained since March, even with kids going to school much more so than they went to school back in March. Of course, you see some drop off in September, when school gets back in, but nothing like what we would see September the year before. Right. And so I do think you're right. I mean, you've talked about this a couple of times on the show. It's not just the gaming of old. What we're seeing is gaming has really become entertainment. And it used to be sort of, there's gaming over there. And of course, there's movies and TV over here. And it just doesn't feel that way anymore. Reed Hastings, the CEO of Netflix, I think someone asked him about, hey, are you worried about HBO or Disney Plus or something? And he said, actually, I worry more about Fortnite because it's just become, gaming has become a form of entertainment that is taking time away from other forms of entertainment. And I think we're seeing that, and Microsoft happens to be in a very lucky position to to have this rich set of content and this thing called Game Pass, which now includes game streaming. And a year ago, I couldn't really answer that question very well because I couldn't tell you we were going to do the packaging that we did. And I think you were like, dude, I don't know what you're talking about. Like, there's XPass over here and there's game streaming over here. And I'm like, well, I can't tell you.
Remember I said to you, are you going to have an E3 and an E5? And you were like,
Exactly.
you're not that wrong.
Exactly. And so now, we think of it as just a feature of Game Pass Ultimate. And there are some hidden gems here, and I think the key thing I wanted to share about sort of Minecraft and Flight Sim is gaming has historically, I think people think of the big AAA huge titles, that come around every now and again, and you just wait for kind of the next version. But what we're just seeing is like the diversity of games has exploded. So, there's this great game called Grounded that I really love. That's kind of a, explore, build, and survive, a fun sort of family-friendly adventure. There's this game called Tell Me Why from another one of our first-party publishing companies, which is very story-driven. And a lot more of these games, we're seeing very heavy story and a little less of the, you have to be phenomenal with the controller to be able to enjoy it. And Tell Me Why is really kind of soulful and beautiful small town Alaska story. It's won a bunch of awards. It's one of the first games with a hero who's a trans character. So we're starting to see a lot more diversity of people represented in the games. And then, my favorite is Ori and the Will of the Wisps. If people haven't played this thing, it's just stunning. And it's a cross-platform. You can play it on a bunch of different places. So I think for me, just the year of gaming for Microsoft has been just explosive, really exciting. I think the strategy is sort of transformational. We love our console. We love that we're selling lots of, Xbox Series X. I actually think the Series S is sort of the hidden gem of the two consoles. The $249 value is unbelievable, all digital, super fast. I love it. But a lot of people focus on the X because it's kind of the, the powerhouse and it's the most powerful console made, et cetera, et cetera. But I wanted to start with gaming.
Can I ask you a console question?
Yeah, go for it.
Believe it or not.
What?
I love it.
Wow.
I love it.
So, when you guys put the consoles on sale, you didn't have enough. Mm-hmm. And I'm curious if that was a strategy, like to create more demand, or was that, we just can't get the parts, and sorry, we're
I'll
not
go
able
a step
to make
farther. Why don't you do what Apple and everybody else does and just say, yeah, you can order it now, but you'll get it in February?
Great. These are great.
That would save my life, honestly.
Yeah. I'm so glad. I'm so glad we get a chance to talk about this.
Yeah.
It was definitely not a strategy of scarcity, and I know sometimes companies will do that. But I think what you're seeing is both Sony and Microsoft, we're going to sell every console we can possibly make and get on shelves. I think with a business that has, a new generation every, what is it, Paul, 5, 6, 7 years, the ability for something like that, the ability for the chip manufacturers, the ability for us and Sony to get our designs done and in the hands of the chip manufacturers so they can build the chips and get all the components. It's just, we really struggle to meet the demand that gamers have for that next gen console. And it's true for both our companies. I don't think either company would say we want to have scarcity. We want people this holiday playing on a new console if they want a new console. So it's a hard, somewhat frustrating situation. We're building as many as we can, as fast as we can, getting them out to retailers, et cetera, et cetera. Oh, you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, we hear
Okay,
you
great.
fine. Yeah.
For some reason, I thought I lost you. It isn't
quiet listening to your answer.
Yeah. It isn't what we want. I don't. I want you to be able to get as many as you would like. So, we'll continue to bring drops as frequently as we can. But I think for both Sony and Microsoft, it's going to be another bit. it's not. I don't think it'll be like, oh, January the channel will be full and everyone can get exactly the one they want. But both companies, I think, are working furiously to build everything we can. And then, Leo, you asked a great question. Why can't we just say, hey, order it now, put a down payment on it or whatever, and then we'll ship it in February? And the reality is, if we had great confidence that we could tell you the date, then we would. If Best Buy says, hey, we feel confident that you're going to be able to deliver me X 100,000 of these so I can actually put the date down, then we all would do that. And I just don't think we have that level of confidence in when the date would be, for which country, for which retailer. And it's a great thing for us to aspire to do much better. And there are some companies, if you look at an Amazon or you look at an Apple, their supply chain they're just world class. And so we aspire to do the things you're saying, so we can give you much more confidence, but we don't want to have a terrible experience. The last thing I want is to tell you you're going to get something in February and then to say, oh no, it actually won't be till April. And so that's why you don't see any retailers doing that.
Makes perfect sense, actually.
We just have to get better at it.
Yeah. Yeah, Apple makes the same thing every year, and they've got a real tight control in the supply chain. It's a very different situation.
And the scale, as you know.
Yeah, right. The volume is so different.
Yeah.
It's so stunning. Yeah.
Thank
but
you
it's
for
frustrating.
That. It is
we
frustrating.
We don't sit at Microsoft and say, oh, isn't this great? We've sold everything.
Crazy.
We
say, oh, God, this is so painful.
We sold out. We went.
Well,
I wondered if, like, the day, like the week of Christmas, you'd be like, guess what? We just found 100,000 consoles. Here they are.
They're in my garage,
and that does happen in like 10,000, 10,000 at a time. But it isn't. It isn't a planned. Let me surprise everyone. It's literally just how fast can we get them to our retailers.
Yeah,
I think there was news this week that Walmart had a new dose of them,
Best
and they
Buy
sold
as
them.
well.
Yeah. I think we had some we sold in 4 minutes or something. It was
that's the problem. I go to Walmart at noon and they're gone.
Yeah. On launch day or on pre-order day, we planned for 4 times our holiday volume for our website. Like, we took our holiday traffic and we said, we're going to plan for 4 times this. And on that day we had, 10 times holiday.
Wow.
And so it was just, the website didn't behave well, and it took us an hour.
Stop launching new consoles. How dare you?
Anyways, that's the unvarnished truth on that question. But gaming for me is just, I don't know how you start this show without me looking at the year without saying I think gaming was transformative. And it only is possible because the gaming team is leveraging so much of the rest of Microsoft. We're literally putting Xbox consoles in our Azure data centers so that a developer can build a game, and as soon as it's approved to play on Xbox, if they want, we can stream it. And they don't have to do anything to the code. And I think
that's the best thing about Xbox, just that the brand has expanded past console.
Yeah.
Now it's moving to be a lot more inclusive. We know more game streaming next year on different devices too. But that's huge.
And we tried it with the Xbox One console through policy and failed. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't until Game Pass came around as no, there's actually lots of value here. And everyone who tells me they want a console, I say, go for it. I hope you can find one. But really, the best value this holiday for a gamer in your life is Game Pass.
We've been saying that. I mean, that's actually brilliant. That idea of what is it, $35 a month, and you get the console and you get all the games. And I mean, it's just really a great idea.
And I would say too, if you're out there looking for a Sony PlayStation 5 and you can't find one, get Game Pass. Problem solved.
Exactly. I love it.
I'm sure Chris agrees.
For sure. So voila, there you go. That was my first one.
Yep.
Shall we?
And now we're going to talk about dynamics, right?
Let me reintroduce for those who are just tuning in, because they hear a third voice in the show. We are talking to Microsoft's Chief Marketing Officer, Chris Capossela. He visits us yearly wearing his MS Paint sweater, ugly sweater, which I'm sorry to say, I went there. They're all sold out. You had a bunch of them. You had a Windows 95 and an XP and a MS Paint. They're all sold out, which is great for the girl coders, but not so great for people who need a last-minute holiday gift. Next year, get on it earlier.
Definitely.
And so we're really thrilled to have Chris on the show with us. Mary Jo, or no, I guess, Chris, you had some more, don't you?
He has more gems, I think.
More gems.
And Game Pass Ultimate, by the way, is about $15 a month. And there's an offer right now for $1 for the first 3 months. So $1 gets you the first 3 months. And then it's $15 a month for, access to over 100 games. And with Ultimate, you get games that you can play on your console, but you get games you can also play on the PC. And then you can stream them today to like an Android device. And of course, we're working on a streaming solution for iOS and other platforms as well. So
it's got to be,
voila.
I mean, if you include EA Play, especially on console, it's got to be over 160 by this point. It's up there.
Yeah, I think that's right. I don't have the exact number, but you're definitely in the ballpark for sure. So voila, that was theme number 1 for me. Theme number 2, is sort of preaching to the choir a little bit maybe on this show, and that's just the PC, sort of the resurgence of the PC. The having people going to school for 6 hours a day, using a laptop, going to work for many more hours a day, using a laptop and maybe a big monitor, playing from home, etc. I think one of the themes we saw this year was just that people still use their mobile phones, of course, but boy, the usage of the PC and kind of reminding the world that the PC is just an incredibly good form factor for getting things done and for working and for learning. That was something we saw in our Windows usage data. This is the year that we surpassed 1 billion, Windows devices being used on a regular basis, and that's obviously a big deal for us. But I think just kind of that interesting reminder that schoolwork is great on a PC compared to trying to do it on a tablet or a small tablet or a phone, or doing work for many hours a day, as bad as it is to be sort of in meetings all day long or what have you. The importance of the device itself, I think, was really a big theme for the industry this year. We saw obviously PC demand go up a bunch. We saw consumers buying lots and lots of PCs. Once again, you have component shortages, you have chip shortages and panel shortages, which hurt gaming devices first and foremost. You have integrated circuit shortages. So the industry is struggling to keep up with the demand. But we see it in education. PC has gotten a big sort of surge. We see it consumer/small business. Obviously, enterprise customers want to make sure their employees have a work from home situation. So we see that both on the virtual side with virtual PCs, Windows virtual devices, growing really pretty fast. But then, of course, you see it in the OEM devices themselves. And I guess it's stating the obvious to this crew, but I think if I look back on this year, it's kind of impossible not to say is sort of, a big year for the Windows PC or PCs broadly. And it's just a great reminder of how important these devices are, I think, to the world doing things. And that's kind of cool. I think we've made a bunch of progress. Maybe you don't see it yet, but I think it was a year ago that Paul sort of asked me, hey, it kind of feels like Windows doesn't have a real leader inside of the company. It feels maybe a little, a little rudderless. And in the past year, Panos has taken on those responsibilities. It was very soon after the show. So, Paul, I went to work right after you told me that. And made some org changes myself.
Called up Panos, hey, Panos, what are you doing right now?
And, I just finished a long review with Panos and Satya and some other senior leaders, and the work that the team is doing is it's just really, really exciting. And so for me, I get to see this stuff before the rest of the world does. I think this past year has been a big, important year for Windows. I think the world will see it in the coming time frame. But I'm more optimistic and excited about the world seeing that the PC matters, and then us doing some of our best work on Windows itself. Never mind continuing to try to do great work on Surface, really trying to push ARM with the Surface Pro X, the Surface Duo, sort of really innovative hardware on Android of all things. A very affordable Surface laptop with the Surface Laptop Go, the 8 gig 128 ice blue is really hard to find. It looks like it's a very, very popular device, hitting a price point that we've never hit before for a Surface device. And then, I think the work we've done has brought the Windows OEMs are just doing, I think, some of the best work they've ever done. The Dell XPS 15-inch, I think, is just a really, really beautiful, hard-to-beat device. The Asus continues to do killer gaming machines. I don't know if you've seen the Zephyrus G14, but that device is unbelievable. The Yoga 5G, we really are committed to always connected PCs on ARM. I love the work Lenovo's done there. HP Spectre X360. Like, as much as we talk about Surface, I think the OEMs have done some of their very best work. So, maybe not a surprise for me to come on a show called Windows Weekly and say that I think
you're preaching to the choir, but yes, I mean, and I would even go back 5 years. One of the nicest things about the transition to Windows 10 was this kind of re-embrace of the PC, traditional PC form factors and productivity as a focus and all that kind of stuff. So, I don't mean to say this year's been great, but I mean, it's nice to see people come to understand again how important the platform is.
Yeah. And then you guys, you pick up on every possible rumor and things I can't talk about it until next year, but there's just a lot of exciting
like which
things
ones?
going
Sun
on.
Valley, cough.
There's all kinds of interesting things going on. And
yeah, you know what though? In your discussion here, the PC, I was going back and looking at all my blog posts for the year, and of all the things, one of the biggest surprises for me of 2020 was how much you guys really did push the Duo, even though it was based on Android. And I kept coming back to why, why not just continue in your partnership with Samsung if you really want to get at the Android base? Like, why do the Duo? I kept saying to myself, why are they doing this?
Yeah.
And I'd be curious when people ask you that, what do you say about the why?
Yeah. Interestingly, customers don't have like an existential, oh my gosh, why are you doing this? For us to be able to show Microsoft 365 on a small screen, phone-like device, with this innovative two-screen thing, they see it as, oh, this is super interesting, and who might I get this for within my workforce? But there are people who, live in Windows land do, of course, ask that question. And I do really believe, we think part of our role with Surface is to try to push on innovative, hardware meets software, meets experiences for the end user. And so whether you're a foldable screen believer and you believe the future will be like a single pane of glass that folds, or whether you're a believer that maybe multiple screens connected with a hinge will be the future, we're really trying to figure that out. And Duo essentially puts forward a thesis that, two screens together can be a future of computing that is better than the one that we have today. And so I think that the core reason for us is, how do you find the next generation of productivity? And can two screens on a small form factor device be super productive? I don't know if you both are multi-monitor people or not, but the whole notion of Windows is you have two windows side by side or overlapping, and it can make you more productive. And some people do that with two physical monitors with a laptop connected. Other people, with Duo, we're sort of saying, could you take two monitors around, and would that be more interesting than the smaller, iPhone style device or Samsung style, classic, Galaxy Note or what have you. So I think it's really pushing innovation and trying to discover that next frontier that unlocks better productivity is the shortest possible answer that I could give. And then I think, as you know, Android was the, sort of the obvious choice to bring all the app ecosystem sort of together. And so does that help, Mary Jo? Does that surprise you? Or is that what you expected?
It doesn't surprise me, really. I guess we get so many questions saying, why didn't they make it a Windows device? And I always say because of the app ecosystem. But I mean, there's the Neo, right? If it ever happens. So
right.
Yeah.
I think in the Windows community, there are just people who want things to go back to the way they were, where obviously Microsoft has chosen just to meet customers where they are on whatever platforms they are. And I mean, I have a hard time arguing against what Microsoft is doing in this case. I mean, to me, it makes sense.
Yeah. The Windows is just so great on whatever 8-inch screen and above, or pick this size. But for that smaller form factor, we're just not there. And so I think that's really the way we think about it is you start with the screen size, and Windows is really fantastic once you get to 8 or 9 inches. But for something smaller than that, Android obviously is the open ecosystem that we can work with. And then, as Paul mentioned, for Teams, for Outlook, for OneNote, we want all of these experiences where people compute, where people use devices. And so by doing something like Duo, it actually makes us better in bringing Teams alive on Android or bringing Teams alive on a non-Windows platform. And that's just so fundamentally important to where we're going.
Okay.
What else you got on this one before we move on? If anything.
On PCs. No, unless you want to drop some Sun Valley knowledge on us, we're good.
Well, actually,
what's Sun Valley?
Let's ask something that's kind of tangentially related, which is that Microsoft is moving into kind of non-traditional PC form factors, potentially with Windows 10X over time. There's this Windows 10 on ARM initiative, which, I mean, just literally this past week, all of a sudden got some momentum. I mean, do you see Windows in the future having a broader role than just the PC? I mean, what can you say about some of this stuff that's sort of Windows, but not Windows as we know it, maybe?
Yeah, I think we're doing so much work on silicon. We're doing so much work on, you look at like Azure Sphere, we're Windows itself on big screens like the Surface Hub, which, if the pandemic didn't happen, I think would have had a very, very different year. And as Paul said, people will go back to working in offices. And I love, this notion of Windows on this very large form factor, whether it's 55 inches, 75, 85, whatever. I definitely feel like, we have more work and more exciting things to do on that space. I think the notion of making Windows run on Azure Sphere isn't something we'll really pursue. Azure Sphere is this MCU, this multi-control unit that essentially runs a very, very small sort of Linux kernel, but then it connects up, of course, to our Azure cloud for security, for updates, et cetera. So it is, I don't think Windows is just for laptops or just for, a Surface Studio 28-inch all-in-one. We definitely feel like there's more we can do with it. And Hub is probably the most concrete thing I can point to today. But I think you'll continue to see us refactor it, think about new experiences that we can create, as opposed to just saying, no, Windows is a PC thing only. You shouldn't feel like that's how we go to work every day.
Right.
Okay.
Voila.
Okay. Any other gems you want to share beyond Windows?
Oh, sure. There's always more. Let me see. I think, to say this was the year of Teams is kind of a understatement.
Yeah, I was wondering when you're going to
I'm sorry, I've not heard of this product. Know. Say it again.
Yeah, I'm like, he's going to have to say Teams at some point.
the only, and I won't beat an obvious horse, I guess. That's a weird metaphor. I will just say the thing that people haven't yet understood about Teams is that we're seeing more and more people not just use it for, persistent chat and video calling and Office document collaboration, kind of the classic, if you go to the website, what you would see, the four-in-one. What we're really starting to see now is people put, business process stuff into Teams, writing, expense approval apps inside of Teams. You look at what the NBA did with Teams. That wasn't just like a video thing. When we partnered with the NBA and they put Teams into, over 150 professional basketball games that were on TV, they created essentially a whole business process around bringing 300 fans into each one of those games. And it wasn't just like, oh, let's start a Teams meeting and invite 300 people. There was literally, business process that got created. And those words are kind of boring, but they're, they pay the bills in a big way. They're very, very valuable. And so seeing Teams move beyond the all-in-one tool for video calls and chat and Office documents, and instead move into, no, actually, this is how we run something. This is literally how we bring fans into the game. It's a core mission-critical business process to put on a professional basketball game. That's like it's part of the production of the basketball game. And there's President Obama sitting next to Shaquille O'Neal. And you know what I mean? Like, that's pretty cool. And, the networks want that, and the NBA want, like, it's like a core part of their product. It almost becomes like cogs of the of the company itself, if you know what I mean. And that's something I don't think people understand. They understand 115 million people use the thing daily. They understand, there's a big battle between us and a couple of other competitors that they want to count the users, and that's all good. But I think that's the thing that I would say to your listeners. People may not have quite understood yet, and we're starting to see it, and it makes it something different than what you might see as the key selling point on the website, if that makes any sense. Mm-hmm. Let me pause and see if that does make any sense.
Yeah, I mean, you guys sometimes in presentations talk about Teams as an operating system, and I noticed Mark Benioff and Slack is starting to use that same kind of description of what they're going to do. Right. So, I think that the message isn't really that it's an operating system like Windows, but more that it's not just a collaboration platform. Right. Yeah.
That's exactly right.
How does this? How do you see things going with consumers and Teams and Skype? I guess. I mean, is there anything you can say beyond what Microsoft has said, which has been fairly non-committal in the sense that obviously, when you're not ready to speak about maybe Teams taking over for Skype, and Skype is an ongoing concern and all that. But I mean, do you see these products kind of becoming one in the future?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think, Skype obviously is the solution that lots and lots of consumers know, and it's easy to get started. People understand it. They use it as a verb. They talk to family members on a Sunday, and, they Skype with them, et cetera. We've always thought of Skype as powering the video conferencing technology inside of Teams. We've started with Teams as a commercial enterprise offering where you have to have an Active Directory ID for it. But the team's obviously very, very hard at work, and we've gone into preview and we have a mobile app that doesn't require that. You can just sign up with a Microsoft account, and the team. We don't think of this as a commercial solution. We think of this as a product like Windows and Office, where we want billions of people to use it as consumers, as students, as teachers, and in the workforce. And so, we only have a couple of those businesses at the company that span at real scale. Office is one, Windows is one. Surface is pretty close. The scale isn't the same, but it's really consumed by consumers if we look at our Surface business, there's a heavy, heavy consumer business and there's a heavy, heavy commercial business. The split is very, very healthy. We want Teams to be that same way. And today Teams is at 115 million daily active users. And most of those people are using it, not to go to yoga class or to have a book club. And I don't say that as a pejorative statement, by the way. Yeah. I say that's something I wish we could get to.
No,
Great. And that's not how it's being used. It's being used in schools, without a doubt. It's being used in commercial. And so those 115 million are, that's education scenarios and that's business scenarios. And in the future, of course, we want people to be doing book clubs and we want people to be doing church groups and those things. And so as you see us adding Microsoft Account, access to Teams. You'll see us promoting it more in consumer and very small business scenarios. And I think the best way to think about it is the Skype technology is really the technology that powers the video conferencing inside of Teams itself. Now, when do you make that switch, and when do you start saying, hey, stop downloading Skype and you should only download Teams? Like we've got a lot of work to sort of do to figure that out. But there's no doubt in my mind that the technology will live. The Skype technology goes forward for sure. The packaging and the naming, my team gets to stress about that and worry about that. And we want to do a really good job, as best as we can, getting people to see the value of Teams, but not confusing them. And, that's a near impossible task. There will be some confusion, there's no doubt, but I think we'll get there. In a year's time, Paul, I think you'll feel like it's clearer. Like the things we'll do between now and then, I think will be clearer that there's a graceful, thoughtful path forward.
I know there's when you think about the commercial transition from Skype for Business to Teams, you reach a point where a milestone or whatever where the latter product now does everything, or at least as much of the functionality of the previous product, that you can make that transition. So I assume on consumer it's a similar.
Yeah, and you want the simplicity. I mean, the beautiful thing about, single purpose things is that they tend to be quite simple. And with Teams, you've got sort of 4 or 5 things in one. And so sometimes it's not. Yeah.
I think you went 400 or 500.
That's until you add Minecraft to Teams. Then it'll be,
Exactly.
Yeah, I feel like the biggest area where Teams isn't simple is just in the number of features that get added constantly and how people are supposed to keep up with that. Like we talk about that on the show every week, and I'm like, they added 50 new features this week. It's just kind of like
the Microsoft 365 folks, and I don't know how you can keep up with all of these features. They do an all-up blog post every month and so forth, and just from our perspective, covering it up from the outside, it's really difficult.
But do we have a different perspective? Because maybe the user it's not really thinking,
see everything.
Oh, I gotta use all these features. As long as the feature they want is there.
Exactly. Yeah. That's you're totally right, Leo. Some of these are for IT people. Some of these are for the end user. The wonderful thing about the Teams job right now is that we're getting so much feedback that I don't think there's much sort of, people just adding features because I think it's a cool feature. Just about everything that's going into Teams is coming from, real customer feedback on, we have to have breakout rooms. No one asked for together mode, but people did say that they were tired of sitting in this grid all day long. And so together mode was born out of trying to break down the little bit of sort of the cells that people live in. And even though no one said, please build this thing that looks like this, the feedback was very clear. Anything we can do to reduce fatigue and improve sort of mental well-being while sitting in front of a tool for many hours a day is a positive thing. So, voila, that's the.
I like it that you're addressing that. That's interesting. I mean, I think it is a problem. With fatigue setting.
Big time.
Yeah.
We added this virtual commute feature, to Teams. Reminding people to you go for a walk before you come into work, and now's the time to zone down as you wrap up your day. You can expect us to do more of these sort of wellness and well-being features, and the response on it is just so high. It sounds maybe a little hokey, but
no,
boy,
the commute thing is really interesting. It's something I don't think anyone would have thought of before. They said, look, there's going to be a pandemic. What do you think it's going to be like? I don't think anyone would have come up with this. But here we are, 9 months in or whatever we are, and the notion that people miss their commute because it is that transition between work and home, in retrospect, is obvious, but it wasn't. It's not something we would have thought about in March, So I mean, it's cool you guys were Microsoft was able to implement something like that. Not in a year from now, but
do you have people, Chris? Do you have psychologists on staff? Who is it that comes up with this? We ought to have a break built in.
Yeah, no, I mean it's definitely a team sport, but when the pandemic hit us, in March, I was very surprised to learn about people we had at the company that I had no idea, we had at the company that they do focus, they really do focus on the, employee health. That's and
great.
The psychology that goes into using our tools. And so, we'd jump on a meeting with Satya because he was doing daily 7 days a week meetings when it really hit. And someone would introduce themselves as the, sort of chief health officer for our employees. And we were like, oh, I didn't know such a thing existed. It's so nice to meet you. We're so glad we have you. And
I made up the title.
Maybe they were opportunistic and very smart.
Yep.
Oh, that's definitely a possibility. But we're very lucky to obviously be at a company that can have that sort of resources. And then the question is, how do you not just leverage them for your own employees' health, but how do you turn them into things that can help our customers deal with the same things? I had a couple more, but you're going to have to keep me honest on time because I want to be respectful of your show.
Oh, no. You take all the time you want.
I know.
Are you kidding me?
As long as you'll stay with us, we'll
just keep talking.
Yeah.
As long as you can stay, we'll keep going.
Okay, great. For me, the other, I only have a couple more. Another theme that I would touch on that most people don't see, and I try to bring stuff you guys don't already know all about, but it's very hard, to be honest. A theme for me would be what we call doing more for first line workers. And we define a first line worker as someone who's sort of the first point of contact with a customer. So for a retailer, this would be a retail salesperson. For a hospital, it would be the doctor, the nurse, the person who admits you to your hospital visit or what have you. A manufacturing company would be people working on the manufacturing shop floor. And when I look at the work we've done around the Microsoft Cloud for healthcare, this was sort of our first kind of industry-oriented cloud offering that combines our horizontal stuff, Microsoft 365, Azure, Dynamics, et cetera, and adds industry-specific things, including partnerships with important ISVs for that industry. It really gets to, I think, a year where Microsoft maybe woke up to our opportunity to really put those first line people at the core of what we designed for. And obviously the pandemic and healthcare, or teachers in education. But it feels like a mind shift inside the company that we're thinking not about necessarily the IT buyer or maybe the CEO or the CFO as the person we're targeting. But now we're sort of saying, no, the customer is actually the nurse or the teacher or the police officer, or, pick your first line worker of choice. I think it might have been yesterday, you'll keep me honest, maybe it was the day before, we announced this vaccination management platform that we're doing on top of our cloud with Accenture and Avanade. This is like another example of building technology that says, okay, how does somebody give 300 million vaccines in the US or whatever, 5 billion vaccines in the world? Like, how do you track that? The person giving the shot, how do they say that they've given the shot to that human being, and where does that data flow? And it's just, I've never seen us think about the first line employee and sort of say, here's how Teams should be used, here's how Azure should be used. And so the Cloud for Healthcare is the first one, but it's the first of many. The vaccination management platform is kind of an interesting thing. And I would sort of have you watch for more kind of in this space, if you will. And it isn't necessarily new products. It's really just taking the stuff we have, but then, adding capabilities so that Marks and Spencer can schedule all their retail people through the holiday using a tool inside of Teams. And then those retail people at Marks and Spencer just look at their phone and they see when they're on. And when they're on, they click a button and now they're sort of checked in and their day has started and they get their tasks for the day. And it's just so different than let's think about Outlook for the person who does, 75 emails a day. And it's a major, major shift.
I think it's a big opportunity instead of thinking commercially to say, and big tech I think needs to do this right now, is say, how can we be a positive presence in the community and in governance and in the world? I think that's a great thing to look at.
Like Facebook is doing.
Yeah. No, I mean
I'm curious though. Does targeting the first line worker mean that you guys are also thinking about what constitutes an app, right? Because in the past it's been like Outlook, Word, PowerPoint, but I feel like for first line workers, there's a whole different set of things they need, and in many cases they're almost like snacky apps, right?
Exactly.
Like little things. And so does that change the nature of what Microsoft considers an app, and how does that look when you start talking about like the Office suite,
I think you're totally right. I mean, Teams is the place where most of this stuff is going to come to life in terms of what a first-line worker would use. And then, Power Apps is the tool that we see. And I think this might have been a hidden gem last year that I talked about. Maybe not. I think it was. That we see most companies like a Marks and Spencer or what have you, they'll use Power Apps as their sort of no-code, low-code way to build a module or a mini app, an applet, whatever you want to call it, that surfaces inside of Teams. So it's not like the employee has to download something new. They're just using Teams, and within the Teams UI, it looks very different than the Teams UI I use every day because it's got a shifts module or it's got a timesheet module. And
this is why they refer to Teams as an operating system, because you could run apps. And those apps can be customized in each install. We all have our own version of Teams, essentially.
Exactly. And if you go back to that Surface event where we were last together, I think, where Paul had like a table that was maybe this big to work on. It was like this tiny little drinking tray.
He totally did.
And it didn't even have three legs. Like I had one leg and you had to keep it balanced. Yeah. If you go back and listen to Satya's speech, if you listen to like the 15 minutes of him talking, this is what he was talking about. And it, obviously it takes some time for it to come to life, but he was signaling that this is where we were going. And I think this was the year it really happened.
I probably didn't hear anything he said because I was rocking back and forth on the
little tiny table.
Oh boy. I figure I have to bring it up so that you can't hit me with it.
I blocked out that memory until you mentioned it.
Self-flagellate.
But you know what? Now, since we didn't get to go to any events this year, that actually sounds great, even though the table is small.
God, I long for those days.
I know. Boy, our events team has lived, 10 years in a single year.
Yeah, no kidding.
And Teams has become really fundamental to the way we run events, and that's a whole nother story.
We're talking to Chris Capossela. He's the Chief Marketing Officer at Microsoft. It's so great to get a yearly update from Chris. I can't tell you how much we appreciate your being here. We'll have more with Chris in just a little bit. Our show today brought to you by Technology Powers X. It's a podcast from Dell Technologies, of all people. But I think it's a really interesting... let me play a little bit of it for you because it's got beer in it, Mary Jo Foley. So,
Now you've got her interest.
Now I'm...
Today at New Belgium, the ancient craft of brewing has an indispensable 21st century ingredient: hyperconverged infrastructure.
Ooh,
that
two things
infrastructure
Mary Jo
supports
loves.
almost every aspect of planning, marketing, sales, and distribution.
How often do you hear hyperconverged infrastructure and beer in the same sentence?
Not often enough.
So the point of the podcast, which is really cool, is how technology and IT departments are reshaping businesses. But what's cool, this original podcast comes from Dell, is it's really more about how really interesting companies are doing really interesting things with technology, reshaping their businesses through AI, through cloud, through intelligent devices. One episode is about, you heard the one about beer. There's one about theme parks and how they use sensors. Imagine a roller coaster with massive amounts of data coming in as the ride goes, and then the software that's used to process it and make rides more efficient, more fun, safer. There's a great one on F1 racing. I know everybody loves F1, Formula One, and this is about how the legendary McLaren racing team uses technologies and sensors in the vehicles to make decisions about pitting and tire selection and even strategy. They can do it trackside. They also have a data center. They have a data center. vertical farming. That's all the rage right now. And how innovative new tech can change where our food comes from. How this may be the future of sustainably feeding 21st century populations. This is fascinating because it really is as applied to these interesting businesses. You heard Danielle Applestone. She's the host. She's a hardware engineer, so she knows what she's talking about, also an entrepreneur. Listen to that one that was called The Beer You Love, all about how technology powers the New Belgium Brewing
As opposed
Company.
to the beer you need.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You may love and need a little fat tire from time to time. Search for Technology Powers X anywhere you listen to podcasts. You can download the episodes right now and anytime. In fact, I'd get them all and then you have them. Technology, I think you're going to really enjoy it. Technology Powers X. Download it today. And our thanks to Dell and Technology Powers X for supporting the show. We appreciate it. Chris Capossela is our guest. Paul and Mary Jo, you're not really grilling him. Are you going to grill him?
I've got one I'm saving up, but maybe I should just throw it out there.
Beef that I think Chris should take.
Let's do it. Let's get to it. I'm ready.
All right. So, again, like when I was looking through my year's coverage, the biggest one that I had to say I didn't see coming, and I kept trying to rationalize it, was you guys almost buying TikTok. And my only question for you is, why?
Oh, boy.
Why were you going to do this?
Oh, boy. Yeah. It's a good question.
Yeah, I think it's a great question. A few things. Well, first of all, I should say that I was not in the meetings to discuss that. So that's probably the first thing I should say is I was sort of informed as a member of the leadership team, but that was a very, very small set of people. And I just thought it would be worthwhile so that, I wasn't hearing that particular dialogue back and forth.
It's not my fault.
But I think there's a couple of things to think about. One is, video is a really important asset. Video is an important medium. I grew up where like the doc was like a big deal, like, an actual document and an electronic form and a spreadsheet. Like these were important ways that work would be done. And if you look today, it's really clear if you look at big platforms in the world like a YouTube or a Twitch or a TikTok, it's obviously incredibly video centric and video led. And one of the reasons we bought a small company called Flipgrid, which has a great user base in the education space, is that, a teacher can give class assignments to their students that they submit as videos. And we see more and more students or teachers adopting Flipgrid, and students can basically do their homework as a presentation, a video presentation that they record on their phone and just submit as their classwork. And so I think one of the interesting things about them as a company is their obvious excellence with video and technology around video, artificial intelligence, processing, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So I think if you believe video is an important format, that's something that TikTok could bring to anybody who could be interested in them. And then if you think about us as a consumer company, we obviously have some wonderful consumer businesses. Gaming, obviously, Windows, Office, Surface, et cetera, et cetera. But most of those businesses, with the exception of gaming, don't have that same, I'm my 13-year-old daughter, I want to spend 3 hours a day doing this thing. Gaming has it. She loves playing Minecraft, she loves Roblox, et cetera. But she also loves TikTok. And so that intimacy, that fandom, right? That ability to say we have something that people want to use that much in their life to entertain themselves is, that's an interesting thing. Now, it comes with all sorts of complicated things.
I was going to say that there's some baggage we're not mentioning here. I mean,
well, she asked me the why. She didn't ask me the why not.
Yeah.
She asked me
Exactly.
the why.
I should have asked you both.
Obviously, there's lots of reasons why not. Lots and lots of them. But just in terms of like, if an employee would say, hey, why did we even consider that? I would point out those things that I think are interesting as a provider or as a
engagement, basically. Just the audience. I mean, you compared it to YouTube and Twitch.
Yeah.
As kind of engaging video services, I guess.
Yep. And video as a format that is important in the future.
You could also just say it looked like a good business. Seemed like a reasonable thing. There were a lot of political implications that you wise to walk around, just dodge around.
Yeah.
That would have been a complicated
I'm sure Oracle
thing.
will do a great job with it.
Yeah. Honestly, I don't know if there's anything going on with that. I think it's just.
I know.
I
It feels like it's
Oracle's
in
gonna
no
have anything
man's
to do with
Going to
land.
drift off now into the distance.
I know.
Yeah.
I mean, if you look at the acquisitions we have done, I think the ones that Satya has really found that sweet spot for him, there's big communities. There's a big LinkedIn community. I forget the latest number, but the last one I have off my head, over 500 million people use it on a regular basis. GitHub, obviously, a big one. Minecraft, a big one. So all of them had a technology play. They obviously also had a network effect. They had a network of big user
Even
community.
Bethesda falls into this category.
Probably, yeah.
Yep.
So voila, there you go. What else you got?
Yeah. Can I throw another one in?
Yeah.
Okay. So Windows 10X, you guys have talked a little about this and shown it and kind of given us some basic explanations of it. But I'm curious, I guess I have a lot of why questions today. Why are you guys doing 10X? And is it just a Chromebook compete thing, or is there more here about why?
Yeah. This is one where I think Panos would be the person to give this answer. He's come in and now the Windows and Experiences team works for him. And obviously he looked at what we were doing and is, I think, excited about where he wants to take 10X. We're also obviously doubling down on Windows 10 itself, as I think you've heard us talk about. And so I would say that's probably one I would go to watch this space on. And in a year from now, I think you'll know a lot more about what our intentions are. We're always looking at how do you factor Windows into different components that gives us the ability to do new things for customers. And I think a big part of the 10X vision is to think about, fresh and new without all of the past. And that's always a really, really hard thing to do. And so we're going to continue to work on that. There are things we really love about the 10X project. Of course, Windows 10 has 1 billion users. We love that. And so this is some of the delicate work that we have to do on the roadmap going forward. But on that one, now that Panos has been in role for, I don't know, maybe 9 months or so, I'd say just watch this space and let us come back to you.
Okay.
This question is kind of as specific. I don't mean to kind of pigeonhole you into a corner, but
Go for it.
But given our focus on Windows and kind of concurrent with what Mary Jo just asked about Windows 10X, I mean, when I think about Windows 10 specifically, and we talked about how important the PC was this year, et cetera, it seems like the forward vision for this has become very vague outside of Microsoft, right? So we used to test specific channels or whatever in the Insider program that were specific versions of Windows, and we're kind of not doing that anymore.
Right.
And I'm not looking for I don't mean to get super specific, but
no.
Is it at least fair to ask whether there's a point where we, outside of Microsoft, have an understanding of what's coming? Because right now it's just, it's like it's come to a halt. Like the schedules that we had before for the past 5 years don't apply anymore.
Right.
And so insiders are testing something. It's not really the next version of Windows. I mean, I don't mean when exactly a date, but I mean, is it fair to ask, is there a point soon, hopefully, that we're going to get some clarity on where Windows is going broadly?
Absolutely. Oh, the broadly one, you just threw me for a loop there. Yes, but I also think you're asking about the Windows. I also think you're talking about the, handful of millions of people that are, really, really deep on Windows and want to have a hand in testing things and helping us shape the future. And so broadly to me is billion.
Businesses that kind of have an expectation for what the roadmap is. The roadmap is what it is, or has been what it is. 2 releases every year. It seems like something's is changing because of just from what we can see from the Insider program, it's not the same as it was before.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. I see what you're saying. Yeah, I think we will provide a bunch of clarity on that front, both to, like when we talk to a commercial customer in person, obviously there's a lot of roadmap sharing that we can do with some big company that we wouldn't put on the Windows, website or write a blog for the whole world to see. So our commercial customers who have close contact with us, obviously I think we can answer and share a roadmap really clearly. The Windows Insider program itself, I think it's been an incredibly strong asset for us. How often do we release a new version of Windows? Hey, is 6 months too frequent? Is 1 year better? Those will debate forever. But then there's the Windows Insider program itself, as in, hey, here's the next build of what we think will be the next release of Windows. Can you please just play with it, give us a ton of feedback, et cetera. That's gotten murkier, to your point. And we also experiment a lot with, hey, here's a bunch of stuff you can test that maybe we could release it outside of a major new release of Windows. And we've definitely heard the thirst for more, hey, can you please tell me how this is all going to come to be, as opposed to just telling me this is a fun playground that I can test stuff in. I actually want to know how you're going to bring this to market. And so consider that feedback heard, and consider us wanting to provide, I think, a more predictable engagement model with the handful of millions of people who really do want that next drop and understand that that's the next drop for this thing that we're going to launch in, at some point, as opposed to, no, it's just kind of a thing we're playing with, or maybe it's something, maybe it's not. So I would just say feedback registered, and I do feel like we'll get more predictable and get back to something that I think people better understand. And I think you asked it very politely, but feedback. I do think of it a little more broadly, right? So obviously there's an enthusiast base, and those are many of those millions of people. But and you mentioned bigger businesses that you speak to privately, but in between are businesses of all sizes, really very, very small businesses. And I feel like they don't live or die on the Windows 10 schedule. I don't mean it like that, but some clarity about what to expect when, I think, would be beneficial generally to almost any customer. No, I think that's totally spot on. Totally spot on.
Mm-hmm. So I'm going to tell you. Can I tell you one of the hidden gems I thought you were going to mention, but you didn't?
Yeah, please.
He probably has at least one more.
Yeah, I do.
Do you? Maybe I'm going to guess the one you have.
You go.
I think one of the least understood but potentially huge changes that's coming for all users, consumers, and businesses is the universal search that Microsoft is building. That goes across Windows and Edge and all the Office apps, and Bing even has a piece of this. And I'm curious if you think it's as big a deal as I do, and how are you guys going to actually get customers to understand the change that you're making around search and the implications for them, both as consumers and businesses?
Yeah, I think this has been one where the industry has just promised universal search forever. And
right.
So in some sense, it's we're going to have to show the value before we try to tout it too broadly. But I feel
it's almost like information at your fingertips is finally happening, right?
Yeah.
Like from the eras gone by, right?
That's totally right. And I feel very spoiled that like today, when I do a search in my browser on the internet, it will show me results from inside of Microsoft in a work section. And then it shows me the results from the rest of the internet below it. And so when I need to, file an expense report, I literally just go type in expense report in the browser, and our internal tool is the first search result in that work section. Like, that's shipping technology. It's called Bing at Work. Any company can plug that in, sort of adopt that. And you'd be surprised at what an eye-opening experience that is, to be able to not think twice about, wait, okay, I want to search the internet, so let me go to the internet search thing. Oh, I want to search my company, so let me go to this sort of intranet-y thing. I don't even know if we have an intranet anymore, et cetera. Like, it's it's just search. You just search, and we'll show you your work stuff. We'll show you your internet stuff. And so I think you're right, Mary Jo. It is an awesome one, but I think we need to help companies turn it on and then earn their kudos after we've shown what it does, because I think we've sort of, the industry has sullied this one in saying, we were going to do this forever, if that makes any sense.
Yep,
which is why I
does.
didn't have it on my list. But it's a great one. It's a great one. Last one I did have on my list, if you'll let me, and then I'll let you guys go on with the show, as they say, is the one no one talks about much that I'm surprised by is actually security. And for me, Microsoft Defender and Azure Sentinel, these are just complete hidden gems. And I think the world is starting to wake up to the fact that Microsoft is a serious security provider, and we can't do it alone. Like, security is not something one company, like with email, most companies will say, I'm only going to buy one email solution. I'm not going to run Gmail and Office 365. That's kind of goofy. But security is not that way. Security, people spend a lot of money on a lot of different solutions. And this past year is the year that I think Defender and Sentinel really sort of grew up and came into their own. And we have a lot of customers telling us, my gosh, you've become a much more important security company in our world than you were 2 or 3 years ago. And I think this one will become a bigger story next year and the year after. And so I wanted to plant the seed. Like, Microsoft Defender and Azure Sentinel, I think are two hidden gems that don't get that much attention, but they've become far more important to our customers. And, we don't do a ton on consumer security. We have a bunch of tech built into Windows itself, but when we listen to consumers, they're very worried about their identity. They're very worried about their documents, their PC getting broken into, et cetera. So I don't think it's just this boring commercial thing that some of your listeners may be like, God, I hate that enterprise stuff. I just want to talk about end user stuff. But I actually think...
Yeah, no,
Mary
he's
Jo,
on
I'm
something,
with
Mary
you.
Jo. Let him talk.
I'm trying to get as much goodness in here as I can that you love. Anyways, I think that's when I put your eyes on that may not be as much on as they are today.
I feel like the changing of the branding around security has made it really confusing. Like when people say Defender, I'm like, wait, are they talking about the thing that I used to know as Defender? Or is this something that's been rebranded to Defender? I have to do all these extra machinations before I can figure it out.
The simplest way to think of it is we have rebranded all of our threat protection to be Defender. Yeah. And so Defender is our threat protection, sort of full stop. And that we have Defender inside of Microsoft 365. We've got a bunch of sort of Defender products, if you will, but you should just think Microsoft Defender really comes down to threat protection. Azure Sentinel, as the name tries to imply, Sentinel, someone sort of, watching over your stuff and being your sentinel. This really analyzes large volumes of data, and it aggregates data from all different types of services, your different applications you're running, hardware you might be running, devices your end users are running. It can run on-prem, it spans on-prem in the cloud, it spans clouds. So it's in the SIEM category, as opposed to Defender, which is really about threat protection. So the name changes are complicated to keep up with, but I feel like these two are pretty important ones that we believe will stick over time. And think about Defender as threat protection, and you should think about a Sentinel as much more about sort of this massive analyzer of data from all over the place to do that SIEM category, if you will. So that's why I call out just those two.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm so way over my allotted time. Any last tough ones for me before I go? Or should we call it a holiday? The Microsoft Paint.
Let's not ruin the holiday.
Microsoft Paint holiday.
No, unless you want to drop any new code names or anything, we're here for those.
Mary Jo's always ready for those.
It's, a list of things you're not allowed to speak about.
Yeah, just tell us what you can't say. That's good.
Well, all I have to do is read your Twitter feed, and then I see all the code names.
Yeah,
and then
that's how he keeps up.
Like some of them, not all of them are right, not all of them are wrong. Like, so I could just go through your Twitter feed and read it out loud to your readers, but I think they can look at that too. Yeah, no, nothing I would drop that, I don't read you already writing about.
Okay.
And I would just say, thank you. Obviously, thank you to the three of you for having the show. For me personally, it has been a little bit of a semblance of normalcy in just a wicked year. And I don't mean that to sound too corny, but, it's been a consistent thing that, you can listen into every week. And that's actually been kind of sweet and nice. And I think you both do such a wonderful job covering the company and trying to cover a very, very broad, complicated business. So thanks for another year of hard work.
Kind of amazes us that you listen, to be honest with you.
I know.
Well, every once in a while, we'll be talking about something, and Leo will say, oh, Chris is probably on his treadmill listening to us. And then you get that kind of little shudder up the back, like, oh, right, you need to listen to this.
It's actually walking out in the city as opposed to in the treadmill, but it's true. And I always laugh when I hear my name.
Chris just drove into a ditch. We better change the subject here. Chris Capossela,
listening, pay attention to the road.
Really.
I'm just walking. I'm not driving. I'm just walking.
I will confess that often I just pretend you're the sole audience member,
right?
And we just think about you and what.
It's nice to get together with that member once a year and just kind of see how the year went and are there any directions you think we should go in. And
Chris is our first line, front line, back line, every line.
Yes.
It's really nice to have you. Thank you for making your time in this for us.
You bet. And I don't know if you know this, but we've opened up our London and Sydney experience centers. The flagship stores are opened up as experience centers in New York, hopefully very soon. And so maybe this year we could do, you guys could do a show from one of those spots
that'd be
again.
cool. Yeah.
we really do something up the world,
Yeah.
Cool. Well, take care. Have a happy holiday.
Thank you, Chris.
Yeah. Thank you, Chris.
All right. I'm going to press the magic button that makes Chris disappear. That is really cool. I just love that. Something new the team works.
It's like get the hook.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. We'll be back with more in just a second, but first a word from our sponsor, Tibco. I know Chris knows Tibco. You know Tibco. You probably seen them. Remember the Tibco logo on the F1, the Mercedes-AMG racing car? You've seen that, right? Do you know what they do? Do you know why Tibco was on that roof? They're actually helping Mercedes, the team, Mercedes-AMG Petronas F1, win. They're helping them win. It's more than just a sponsorship. In fact, they've helped them win 7 world championships. Because what Tibco does, there's 3 pillars to what Tibco does. It helps you connect a variety of sources of data, then unify that data, make it so that it all integrates together, and then take the data and predict outcomes using advanced analytics. And by the way, giving you those results beautifully with intuitive visualizations. That's Tibco. And if you think about it, the F1 racers, these cars are laden with sensors. They are data platforms on wheels. So they use Tibco and their advanced digital foundation with data analytics at its core to take that data and do something with it. Make it a better race car. No wonder they've won 7 world championships. That's pretty high praise. So it's more than just a logo on the car. It's really deep inside the racing team and their success. I'll give you another example. Panera Bread. Who hasn't gone and had a nice sandwich at Panera, except along comes a pandemic. You can't do it anymore. Panera's trying to figure out, oh my goodness, what do we do? They went to Tibco. They needed a platform that would connect all their data in a unified way. It's hundreds of stores, right? Tibco did the analysis, the analytics. They took the data, they collated it, they massaged it, and they helped Panera Bread diversify their business because they had that solid, flexible data management foundation. They could look at the data and see. It's kind of like the answer is written in the data if you could but see it. And that's what Tibco does. In fact, it's because of Tibco, Panera successfully launched Panera Bread Grocery, right? They solved the problem. That's what TIBCO does. University of Chicago Medicine. Another example. Their CEA, Christine Watts, said, in real time, we were able to alert our rapid response team to which patients are likely to go into cardiac arrest, again, with data. So far, thanks to TIBCO, we've successfully reduced the number of cardiac arrests in the hospital by an estimated 15 to 20%. It's life-saving. It's really, data is everywhere. But it's what you do. It's how you understand the data that makes the big difference. That's what TIBCO does. They confidently help you with predicting business outcomes with real-time, data-driven intelligence. It's not guessing. It's not guesswork. No, more powerful than that. You get the information you need to succeed. And I think everybody knows that data is the transformative energy of the modern enterprise. So TIBCO helps you unlock the value of that real-time data and create a real competitive asset. To industry analysts, including Gartner and Forrester, TIBCO says TIBCO's role in the digital economy is pervasive. It's funny because I remember the name from the race car, but do you know what they do? It's everywhere. They're doing it right now. They should do it for you. TIBCO solves tomorrow's impossible business problems by seamlessly connecting any application, device, or data source, intelligently unifying data for better access, for trust and control, and confidently predicting business outcomes with real-time data-driven intelligence. Let them help you connect the dots in ways you never thought possible. I think every business owner kind of intuits that the information is there, but how can I unlock it? That's the job of TIBCO. Fuel the modern enterprise through TIBCO Connected Intelligence. Learn more about how TIBCO can unlock the value of your company in real time with data at tibco.com/podcast. TIBCO, tibco.com/podcast. We thank them so much for their support. A really interesting company. When I sat down and talked with them and learned so much, I was blown away. It's more than data science. It's really it's data insights. Tibco.com/podcast. Chris is such a nice fellow. He seems like such a nice guy.
Yeah, he really is.
Yeah.
And very open. And I can't think of many companies that would allow their CMO to come on a show like this and just field all questions.
Yeah.
So credit to Microsoft, too. 30 years he's been there.
I know.
So he said at the beginning, but I don't know if we were on the air yet, he said that he used to be Bill Gates' speechwriter.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, he did used to be Bill Gates' speechwriter.
That's pretty cool.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then you remember the famous incident where he crashed a demo of, it was Access
Was
or
that
PowerPoint?
him on stage?
Yes. That was Chris Capossela as the demo guy. Yep.
So the next, this is a USB plug and play thing, right?
Yeah,
it was plug and play. It was very famous.
And Bill Gates was like giving this demo, and all of a sudden it just went green screen or whatever, or blue screen.
Yeah. So
and
the next year, this was at I think CES or Comdex or something. CES probably. And the next year, whatever the event was, or maybe it was just who knows. It doesn't matter. But anyway, the event the next year, I was in the second row. And Gates said, I just wanted to let you guys know.
It's going to say, hey, I see you plugged in a new device. And it's going to load in the appropriate drivers. You'll notice that this scanner build, whoa.
That's Chris.
Yep.
Whoa.
I was there. Were you there, Paul?
That's gotta hurt.
But where was this? Was this, which
I
event?
forget where it was.
It might have been
Moving right
event
along.
type.
That must be why we're not shipping Windows 98.
The next year, I kind of came out and said, hey, I just wanted you to let you know that the guy who did the demo last year still works for the company. And then I yelled out, yeah, and he's parking cars.
But
actually,
he's
the CMO.
That was him.
That's, you know what? That's awesome. Boy, is that is just that's hysterical. That's so great. So, Chris, I'm sorry we played that for you. I'm sure.
I'm sure he's seen it many a time.
Painful moment.
It's not quite developers, but it is up there.
Yeah. Well, it'll live forever thanks to YouTube. Paul Thurrott has our tip of the week.
Oh, we're moving right to that?
Well, you don't have to. You want to do something else? You want to do some of the other things? There's some other stories.
We could save the other things.
I do think there are 2 or 3 important things we should hit on.
You do?
Right?
Okay.
Windows
No
10
problem, man. No problem.
Stuff.
Go ahead. Let's do it.
No, I mean,
yeah.
And then the 17 items I have for Xbox.
I know. I'm like, and the 25 Xbox items that are on there. Yeah.
No, I mean, only 15 or 16 of those are really important.
Okay.
So you want to start with Windows 10 bringing emulation?
Yeah, because I think this is a big deal.
Okay.
Really big.
There's a lot of interest in this, actually.
Yeah.
Don't look at me. Look at Mary Jo.
Yeah.
Don't look at me.
When was this? This was like a week ago. I'm like, God, this feels so long ago. Microsoft put out 2 test builds of Windows 10 in one day. And one of them, for the dev channel, had x64 app emulation for ARM in the test build. So we had heard this was coming, but there was never anything definitive, like when or how, or is it really coming? And boom, there it is. It just showed up as part of the test build.
Nice. Wow.
This is a big. This is big, and
yeah.
Obviously, after the kind of sucker punch of M1 and what's going on with Windows 10 on ARM, I think it's important to kind of step back and think about the point of Windows 10 on ARM, and then the big issues with it, right? And the big issues, of course, are performance, which I think is something that will be solved over time. And then compatibility and app compatibility on one level, and then the driver compatibility, which is honestly a much smaller problem, but is real. This solves the biggest problem I think that this platform has, which is, or will solve, I suppose, when it comes out, which is the application compatibility picture. Because it is a really tough thing to say to someone who buys a computer and has no idea what they're doing, why doesn't this app I need run? Mm-hmm. Oh, because you got Windows 10 on ARM. Like this is something in the history of Windows no one's ever had to think about, right? You buy a Windows PC because you know it's going to run everything you have. Mm-hmm. But if you buy one of these PCs, not necessarily. So,
but you know what's interesting about this? Do you remember when they first came out with Windows on ARM? They said it's impossible to do x64 emulation on Windows 10 on ARM, and everybody was like, "Oh, it's impossible because Windows on Windows." There were all these complicated reasons, and then they're like, "Oh no, wait, we figured it out.
Oh no, they
can do it."
On it. Like, well, I never say never.
Right.
Yeah, and then actually, it might have been the same event Chris was just referencing last year. It was last October where we were in a room and they said, "Oh yeah, x64," and it was like, "Well, hold on a second."
Yeah.
You literally had said in the past you couldn't do this, and it's like, well, no, we're working on it.
Right, and they haven't really explained how they did it, but it does not involve Windows on Windows. That's not how they did it. They did it in another way.
Yeah,
right?
I was going to say so just not that I could explain this at a deep technical level, but the architecture they used to make Windows 10 on ARM work emulating x86 apps, which are 32-bit apps, is the same way that 64-bit Intel systems running Windows don't emulate, but run 32-bit apps in this same type of environment. So that's why 32-bit Intel app compatibility, regardless of performance, was not as technically challenging as it might have been otherwise. They used the same type of subsystem.
Wow.
For 64-bit, Windows on Windows. So for 64-bit, they had to do something completely different. I haven't tested it extensively, but I did install it. And then I went after the major 64-bit apps that I do use, and they work. The system I have is still slow overall, but these apps are no slower than any other apps. And this is what I've been saying for 3 years. Speed is important, obviously, but just being able to run that app that you need, even if it's a little slow, is so much better than it not working at all. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't. I wouldn't say that these apps feel like they're particularly slow. In other words, that the 64-bitness of them doesn't necessarily impact the performance, from what I can tell. Mm-hmm. So it's good.
Yeah, I know. So it was funny. They just kind of announced it with little fanfare, like, "Oh yeah, way down in the blog post. By the way, we do have this emulation thing in here." And I'm like, "Wait, what?"
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, and
so
that's
and
great.
then the other branch that they had was the Iron branch, which isn't getting any new features. No surprise there, right?
Yeah. I stopped even posting when they release those things. It's just not worth it.
Yeah.
All right, so that's one big thing. I would say this happened also kind of suddenly and unexpectedly. Microsoft converting, or I shouldn't say converting, but releasing the M1 Apple Silicon versions of their Mac Office apps, right?
Right. They didn't say when that was going to happen either, but it was just this week. They were like, oh, by the way, we got the universal apps working on M1. Yeah. I know. And when they sent me the blog post, I was like, wait, is this what I think it is? These are the native apps. They're not running with the Rosetta 2. This is like the actual, Outlook, Word, Excel, PowerPoint, and OneNote running on M1, right? But they also run on Intel. They also run on Intel.
The universal apps. Yeah, so they'll run on both natively. Yep. This is all the core apps: Outlook, Word, Excel, PowerPoint, OneNote, etc. What it isn't, interestingly, is some of the other core apps. Right. So OneDrive is not native yet on M1, and Teams is not native on M1. Although, I mean, I don't know how. This is an Electron app, I believe. I don't know how those things work on the Mac.
Right. So I was going to ask you about that. Teams is an Electron app, right? So it can run on there, right?
It still works. Yeah, both those apps still work, but they run under the Rosetta emulation for some reason. So I don't know. I just don't understand how an Electron app works on the Mac. I can't speak to that.
Yeah.
But they called it out. In fact, I think they said there was going to be a native M1 version somehow. I don't know what that means for Electron, but.
Yeah. Right. So, and then they talked a little about the new Outlook for Mac experience, and that was kind of an afterthought after the M1 stuff. But, they're doing a lot
but that's a beautiful app, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. I know. I'm like, why doesn't Outlook for Windows look like that?
I know.
Just asking for a friend. Yeah.
It's a fair enough question.
Yeah.
And then,
I agree. Those were big. Those were big things.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I wouldn't say that any of the Xbox news is big.
Wait a minute. Don't skip over Surface Duo coming to 4 more countries. How can you skip that?
So with the Xbox, if you
No, you know what? Actually, we shouldn't skip that because there was a lot
what Chris said.
And there were a lot of people speculating about whether Microsoft would push it into other countries because it kind of had a lackluster reception here,
They're all in.
Well, listen, they are, first of all, only promising 4 more countries and in next year sometime. So, I mean, it's not like it's a...
No.
And I'm sure maybe it could expand from there, but this reminds me of how Surface devices used to roll out.
It is, right. And I'm thinking I think they're already working on Duo 2. I've had people ask me that too. Like, do you think there'll be a second and third iteration of Duo? I'm like, yeah, I do think there will. And I think they're well on their way to Duo 2.
And if you want to kind of read between the lines of something that Chris did say, which maybe or maybe not, but maybe was telling, he mentioned, some people believe that these single folding screen is the future, although folding screen phones also have a second screen that's on the outside, which is part of the point. But let's just describe it as folding screen versus 2 screens with a hinge. Or I think he said multiple screens with a hinge, right? This suggests to me that a future Surface Duo device will continue to use multiple screens and a hinge.
Me too.
Right?
Same.
And not be a folding display.
Me too. Yep. I think they really believe in this multi-monitor paradigm that they keep saying is the reason they did the hinge and the 2 screens.
Can I make fun of that though for a minute? Because
you can. You can.
at launch, they cited the updated Kindle app as an example of an app that was specially tailored for this type of screen. Although I'll point out the Kindle app obviously would work great on a folding screen device, whatever. So in the months that have elapsed since, they've come up with a second app. And the second app that has been tailored for this unique form factor is, of course, TikTok.
I know. So I saw that. TikTok, yep.
Yeah, TikTok and Amazon Kindle factor heavily into your life. Maybe one.
Now I may want to get my Duo back.
Uh-oh.
So how does it work? The videos are on one side and what's on the other side?
I honestly, I read TikTok and I stopped reading, but I'm sure it's really immersive.
You couldn't care less, could you?
No,
maybe 2 videos at a time. It's
there you go.
Tick-tock.
It's like when you listen to a language tape overnight so you can learn a language, and then it, like at the Stephen Wright joke, how it like skips, and then you just know how to stutter in Spanish. I don't know.
No, but Chris was really playing up the productivity part of the Duo, right?
They're still
More
all
than
in
consumer,
on it. That's what I took away from it. Yeah, they're really all in on it.
Yep.
Yeah.
I think we can expect there to be a V2 next year.
Me too. Same.
Interesting.
Yep.
I regret buying the Galaxy Fold. There's just no.
You do?
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Now, see, I feel bad about that.
But do you regret giving
Paul.
back the Duo? No, right?
No, although now this new TikTok thing, I'm thinking maybe I
No,
should.
come on. What if it had Pokemon Go? You'd be in all in.
The Duo wasn't quite ready for prime time, but
No,
I think
it's not.
I
It's not
prefer
ready.
its form factor to the folding screen. I don't think folding screens are very good.
Really?
Well, they're fragile, so you have to put a screen protector on it. And the screen protector feels like crap. I mean,
you get bumpers on the Duo, right?
No, but I'm talking about. I want a glass. I like a glass screen.
Oh, you want to touch the glass.
The screen isn't glass to begin with. It's already soft plastic, so they put another soft plastic screen protector on it, and it feels like you're touching rubber. It doesn't.
Yeah.
It's not a good
have a nice
experience.
feel.
No, and it gets dirty, and it's not
obviously
not a good experience.
That will improve.
Yeah. I guess. I think it might be a bit of a stretch, this whole folding screen thing. That's why I think the Duo might not be far off. Just the idea of a dual screen. What's the big deal with a hinge? I don't see the hinge being a problem.
I feel like the Neo made more sense to me.
Well,
like
I agree.
Dual,
I agree.
bigger screen, Windows.
Yeah.
The reason it's a problem is if like it depends on what you're doing. If it's an entertainment app, like a video app, it's a huge problem. Because you want to use all that real estate.
Right.
There's an inch gap in the middle. It's terrible. If you're using something like Google Maps spread out across, it's probably okay, I guess. But even then, I think obviously a single expansive screen is just better visually.
Well, I think that's why if you had
can get smaller.
If you had a Neo with a bigger screen, then it wouldn't be you're not expected to span both screens so much as But I don't know.
I know. We'll see. Next year, we'll see.
We'll figure it out.
Yep.
We'll figure it out. Well, no, we won't figure it out. Samsung will figure it out, but someone will figure it out.
Somebody will figure it out, and then we'll buy it. Do you want to talk about Xbox, Paul?
Yeah, I have a number of things. None of these are huge. Last week I mentioned, I think it was 15 or 16 games had come, maybe it was 2 weeks ago, had come to Game Pass at the beginning of the month. This past week, they announced another 11. I assume that's kind of it for the month because they usually do a batch at the beginning, a batch in the middle, and this one was released a little early, probably in anticipation of the holidays. But if you're an Xbox Game Pass guy or gal, there are a lot more games there, so that's really cool. They announced that Flight Simulator is coming to the Xbox Series X and S in summer 2021. So we kind of knew that was happening. I think a lot of people expected that it would happen on Xbox One as well. It's not. So if you want to play Flight Simulator on a console, you need one of the newer ones. And that may or may not be disappointing to you. And then also a little disappointing is EA Play has been available for Xbox Game Pass. I think it's Ultimate users since, I want to say, the middle of November. And this past week, yesterday, the 15th, should have been the day that it became available to Xbox Game Pass for PC subscribers. But it's been delayed to early 2021. And I think it's because of something on EA's side. It's not happening. It's just getting this stuff to work on the PC is a little more complicated than on a console where obviously they control everything. So that's been delayed a little bit. I think that's most of it. If you're into Call of Duty, Season 1 started today. New maps, new game modes, new weapons, blah, blah, blah. That's all good. So
it's a weird time to begin the season. Week before Christmas. But I guess people are home.
So the good news here for me is Xbox is kind of a second-class citizen in the Call of Duty world, right? Because their exclusivity contract with Sony. But actually, the stuff they've added to the game so far has happened on both sides on the same day. So this just happened to, this stuff's available. It's just available. So that was surprising to me. I woke up this morning and saw there were a bunch of new things on Call of Duty I wasn't expecting right away. So that's nice.
Yeah, cool. That's fun. Yeah. Flight Sim is coming to the Xbox, but not the Xbox One.
Yep.
That's a bummer.
Well, but you want it to look like it looks.
You
on
need
the
to
PC,
have the quality.
So
yeah.
You need the Xbox Series X.
Yeah, that makes
for
sense.
That, so.
Master Chief.
Yeah, Fortnite. Oh, Fortnite. I don't get Fortnite. Every time I always hear things about Fortnite. I run Fortnite, and I'm like, oh yeah, this is why I don't play Fortnite. But Fortnite adds all these goofy characters, and now you can get Master Chief,
That's
which is obviously
sell
the
like
Halo character.
Hot potatoes. Are you kidding?
Yeah. So it's funny. You actually kind of have to pay for this. It's like they use V-Bucks.
Yeah.
I assume are virtual.
Yeah, but you pay for it. Yeah.
I never played Fortnite, so I had V-Bucks somehow. So I think you just get them when you get the game, I guess. So if you've never played Fortnite, you could probably get it for free.
But otherwise,
I don't know how V-Bucks.
You'll be paying
V-Bucks to. I'm sorry.
I'm just saying you have to pay money for it if you don't have any V-Bucks.
I just don't know how much money. I can't do that translation. It's like it's more complicated than the yen. I don't know.
Did you talk about this with Chris? EA Play for the Game Pass?
Yeah, no, I just mentioned it. Yeah. This is just delayed on the PC.
So we've done them all. I'm just looking back, and I'm going to want us to miss a thing.
I didn't want to lose Mary out there, right?
I was just like, no more gaming, please. We had all the gaming gems up front.
I love that he led with gaming. I'm just saying.
You know what? I'm just going to say I'm not surprised he led with gaming. And I think I said this to you privately. If there hadn't been so many gaming announcements from Microsoft this year, there wouldn't be a lot of announcements from the company this year.
Oh, that's a good point.
I mean, as much as I hate to admit that, I mean, how many Dynamics announcements were there? Not that many, but there were a lot of gaming
I also just want to point out that one of Mary Jo's picks coming up is gaming related, and I chided her on Skype for infringing on my territory.
It's mine. All right. Back of the book coming up. Our show today brought to you, in fact, the whole year, I think it'd be safe to say, brought to you by LastPass. Thank you, LastPass, for being a great sponsor all year long. They bought studio naming rights, something I don't think any other podcast has ever done. I don't hear anybody say from the Joe Rogan LastPass Studios. I never hear that. So we're really grateful. It was a vote of confidence in us, and thank you. And of course, we have absolute confidence in LastPass. That's why I've been using it for a dozen years. Steve Gibson started using it about 10 years ago. I harangued him until he actually went to LastPass and said, all right, show me what you're doing. Was so impressed, he started using it, still does. We use it as an enterprise. They call it, the technical term is Identity and Access Management, IAM. Companies these days are facing significant cybersecurity threats. I think you know that, especially when employees are working from home. But whether employees are connecting from the office or from home, the risk of cyber attacks, data loss, data breaches are just something you have to do everything in your power to mitigate. And I would argue a solid cybersecurity strategy is more important now while employees are working from home than ever before. From the Wi-Fi network to the shared devices, all of that suddenly outside of your direct control. Yikes. That's why LastPass is so critical to protecting your business. It gives your IT department, your security team, the chance to take back control of password security, all from a central dashboard. You can customize admin privileges, ensuring that any given admin has only the right level of access. No matter which your organization's source of truth is, LastPass will integrate to onboard users, to sync groups, to revoke access. You'll get access to security scores, dark web monitoring to see real-time readouts of your business's password hygiene, and provide alerts to employees when their credentials could be at risk. And for every employee, you can view password scores, gain access to shared accounts, monitor group memberships, and more. LastPass's zero-knowledge security model protects everyone from the individual user to the biggest organization. They allow employees to go passwordless, I love that, single sign-on, while giving them access to the tools they need to work. And of course, with their strong encryption algorithms, the best you can get, their local-only encryption, your data never is decrypted off device, only on your device can you decrypt it and see it. The master password is never transmitted to LastPass, and LastPass's multi-factor goes beyond two-factor to give you contextual information like geolocation and IP address. Now's the time. Don't wait till the new year and your new budget. Now's the time to invest in upgrading or adding security technologies to make remote work safer and more productive. Don't wait. Do it now. Start solidifying your cybersecurity strategy with the award-winning LastPass today. Go to lastpass.com/twit to find out how they can help you. That's lastpass.com/twit. Do you like my MITS Altair, by the way? Look at that.
I know, it's beautiful. Look at it working, too.
I was hoping Chris Capossela would notice it because this is an important device in the history of Microsoft. That's right. This started Microsoft. First in the base. Yeah. Yep. This was the first program.
And by the way, for the day, that was a technical achievement. They wrote this on paper without having access to a machine.
I remember them getting on the plane with the paper tapes. There was a great story about it, and then they weren't sure if it would run.
It ran the first time.
And it ran the first time. It was on the cover of Popular Electronics, and I think it was Steve Ballmer came running into Gates' Harvard dorm room and hit him and said, Bill.
I think my understanding is Gates, but maybe you're right. I don't remember. But yeah.
I'm trying to remember the story.
It's apocryphal now. It was in,
it was in Triumph for the Nerds.
News in Harvard Square.
Was it?
Someone saw it and ran in. They were playing cards, and that was his last semester at college.
Bill, that's right. He didn't. Yeah, he dropped out. Said, We're moving to Albuquerque. Gonna go see Ed Roberts, very famous MITS Altair.
We're moving to the center of the computer industry. Albuquerque.
It's the future, baby. Is Albuquerque? No one can spell it, but that's where it's gonna be. Didn't you live in Albuquerque for a while?
I did. Yep.
Wow.
Was that because of Bill Gates and the Altair?
No, no, but I've seen the place. I mean, it's a nondescript strip mall-y kind of thing.
It's Paul Allen.
It's not a pretty area of town either, although that might have changed.
Bill Gates recalls that when he and Paul Allen read about the Altair in the January 1975 issue of Popular Electronics, nothing about him.
Yeah, because Steve Ballmer didn't come to Microsoft.
It wasn't Ballmer. It was Allen. Yeah. They understood the price. And Allen wasn't at Harvard with Bill. That's why I'm confused about the whole thing. And they understood the price of computers would soon drop to the point that selling software for them would be a profitable business. Who knew?
Crazy.
They contacted Ed Roberts. They told him, "Hi, name is Bill Gates. We're developing an interpreter. Would you like to see a demonstration?" This followed the questionable engineering industry practice of a trial balloon, an announcement of a non-existent product to gauge interest. Roberts said, "Yeah, come on out. Show me." They gave him a couple of weeks. Yeah. They had neither an interpreter nor an Altair system on which to develop.
They wrote
They had an emulator. They had an emulator. Allen had written an 8008 emulator for their Trafo data that ran on a PDP-10, which, by the way, I have right behind me. I have all the historic machines. This one's on a Raspberry Pi. This one's an Arduino. More powerful than the original computer. It's got 64K of RAM. The original interpreter fit in 4K. And they stored the finished interpreter on a punched tape that the Altair could read, and Paul Allen flew to Albuquerque. While on final approach to the Albuquerque airport, Allen realized they'd forgotten to write a bootstrap program to read the tape into memory. Writing on a piece of paper, on a pad in 8080 machine language, he finished the program before the plane loaded.
Oh, so didn't he have to flip some switches to make the bootloader?
Yeah, that's how you do it. That's what these switches are. You program in the bootloader. Sure. Only when they loaded the program onto an Altair and saw a prompt asking for the system's memory size did Gates and Allen know their interpreter worked on Altair hardware. Later, they made a bet on who could write the shortest bootstrap program, and Gates won. Remember how proud Bill was of some of the code in that BASIC?
Oh yeah, he was always very proud of really tight, efficient code.
Tight code. See how clever I was here? Yeah, it's very cool.
Well, now we use JavaScript. It's fine. It's the same thing.
Yeah,
it's the same. All right, let's go to the back of the book. Paul Thurrott starts us off with his tip of the week.
Yeah, and this is the tip is, I guess, whether you should use Microsoft Authenticator, not for its original use, which of course you should use it for 2FA, but for its new capability, which is as a password autofill manager on Android and iOS. So they just updated the app. This is a beta feature, so you have to go and enable it in settings. You have to be signed in with a Microsoft account. You can't be signed in with a work account, like a AAD account. If you do have one of those accounts registered in the Authenticator app, you won't be able to use this feature because that's a feature that your business has to turn on. You can't manage passwords against a work account without the approval of your work. So okay, fine. So what is this thing? If you're familiar with the way that mobile operating systems like iOS and Android work, is they have a password autofill feature that by default is the system maker's autofill technology. So Apple has one, obviously, that I guess syncs through Keychain and iCloud or whatever, and Android's is built by Google and syncs with Chrome as well. So Microsoft built their own into Authenticator, and you can replace the default password autofill on your mobile device if you want to. And what that means is that it will bring in all the passwords you've synced through Microsoft Edge, the desktop version of the browser, into this system, into this app. And then you can use those apps when you have to those passwords and sign-ins when you go to sign into an app. It's a good idea. Obviously, there are third-party solutions for this, OnePass, LastPass, et cetera. In its current form, I would say you shouldn't use it yet. It's just not full-featured enough yet. It's missing all kinds of things, including the ability to generate complex passwords. You can't go into the app and say, I want to set up a password directly. It only works when you go to a place. So if you go to an app and you say, I want to sign in, and it says, well, we can't find a password for this. So you sign into the app, you manually type in your information, then it will say, do you want to save this back? And it's fine. It works fine. It's just not quite ready, and that makes sense. It's in beta. So I guess the tip for now is just keep your eye on this. If you trust Microsoft, and I feel like a lot of you probably do, I certainly do, I would like to sync everything through Authenticator, and I will. I'm actually using it right now. I'm probably just going to go back to the default until this thing is more full-featured, but I feel like they're going to get it there.
Both Apple and Microsoft are doing this. They're moving toward having a password manager built into the operating system. Which is interesting. Although unlike Apple, Microsoft's making its work on iOS, which is
and Android. And Android. So, by the way, this and a lot of enthusiasts will know this. This is actually one of the missing pieces in Windows 10. Like they have a mobile app store, and you can install like Spotify or Hulu or whatever. And when you go to sign in, you got to sign in. You have to just type the stuff. Like they don't have a. It is, it doesn't pass through on Windows for some reason. It's very strange. I don't know why they don't do that. Maybe someday they will. But Authenticator is a great multi-factor authentication app. It works great, commercial or consumer accounts. But for this particular feature, I'm excited to doing this. I want to do this stuff through Microsoft. I like this. It's not quite there yet, but give us some time. I think they're going to get it there.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, it doesn't replace LastPass or OnePassword or any other password managers. I suspect it will. I wonder. If I were LastPass, I'd be a little like,
wondering.
Well, Microsoft in particular, like Apple's in a good place. People trust Apple, obviously.
But Apple's never going to go cross-platform, so it'll never work on Android or Windows.
That's right. And there are people. I'm sure there are people who just don't think about it, and they sign in through Android. And they don't even really think about it. But I think, given the choice, a lot of people would pick Microsoft over Google. So
interesting.
It's a good choice.
They've done it before. Yeah. I mean, remember when Microsoft started making an antivirus? They bought Giant, and they started making their own version of it. And there was some concern among antivirus companies that they were going to lose out. That doesn't seem to have stopped them. So we'll see.
Yeah, Giant anti-malware, right? Wasn't that the name of it?
Yeah, wasn't the best.
I like Giant because they spelled their name in all caps because they were giant.
Giant, they're so big. They're so big.
But that became Defender essentially.
Right. That's right.
Over time.
Yep.
Right? I mean, it made a pit stop on. It was OneCare for a little while, but it became Defender.
Yep.
Yeah, that's exactly what you were asking Chris about.
I know they have done so much rebranding around that stuff.
I'm like, it's crazy.
Yeah.
App pick of the week, Paul.
Yeah, so I have 3. They're all browser related. It's just kind of interesting. The past week there have been 3. Oh, actually, they're not all browser related. I guess, well, they're all web related. Doesn't matter. Anyway, the Brave web browser was updated this week with an integrated newsreader. Now, if you understand how Brave works, it's kind of interesting because obviously they are privacy first. So Chromium-based browser, integrated RSS reader. This particular feature, like the Microsoft Authenticator type thing, is not quite full featured yet. So this is the first version. I like this idea a lot. I actually use an RSS reader all the time. This one hides, your identity, keeps your privacy from the source of this. There's no tracking or anything, which is nice. The only thing it's lacking right now is the ability to add arbitrary RSS feeds to it. So right now it's kind of like a news feed, and you can customize it with your likes and things, but over time, obviously, what people like me were going to want is the ability to say, these are the explicit, RSS feeds I want to follow. So that's coming. It's not there in the first release. Firefox was also updated. I think it's version 84, probably 80 something, 84. Yeah. Couple of things going on here, but the big one, of course, is native support for the M1 based Macs. So if you were using Firefox 83 for the past month or so, that's an Intel app, runs under Rosetta. There's some instructions for how you upgrade. Basically, it just involves making sure the app isn't running and then installing it fresh, and it will install over itself, and you'll get the universal app. And that's neat. It also includes for Windows guys, WebRender, which is Mozilla's hardware accelerated rendering engine. So dramatic performance improvements there. So that's good if you use Firefox. And then actually I can update this one because this week Luna and now Google Stadia let me backtrack on that one. Luna has come to, Android. This is the Amazon game streaming service as a web app. I don't know why they didn't do it. They did Android. Android's the biggest platform there is, and they did it last. But previously it ran on Fire TVs, different smart TVs. Oh, no, I'm mixing this up, but I'm sorry. I'm mixing things in my head. I'm sorry. I'm confusing Stadia and Luna. But Luna ran on Fire TV Stick, obviously, all the Amazon stuff. And I think Windows and iOS and iPad through a web app. Now it runs on Android also through a web app. But then it's not in the notes, but Google today updated Stadia so that it runs on iOS and iPad using a web app. And that one's available probably more broadly than any other service. It's on everything. It's on LG, Vizio, Samsung, probably some other smart TVs, all the Fire TV stuff, Roku. It's everywhere. Like it's Windows, Mac. Stadia's is available in a bunch of different places. So interesting that all this stuff is web app.
I've been playing Cyberpunk on Stadia, on a Mac and on a TV, and it's pretty. It's actually, I think some might agree it's a better way than Xbox One or PlayStation 4. It doesn't. I still haven't done this, but I've heard that Stadia works best if you use a Chromecast Ultra, which I have. That's their official way to use it. Yeah. Yeah, I find on the PC through a web browser it works pretty well, but there's a little bit of latency. Yeah. But, they're doing something because it should be more latent than it is. I feel like they got something going on there. It looks good, too. The graphical quality is fantastic. 1080p, I think, right? It's not 4K. Yeah. But still. It can do 4K, but not on a PC. Yeah. Right. So it's intriguing. I think, I'm telling you, as we've said many times, this is the future of computing. It really is. You know what this is? See, to me, what this reminds me of is it's going to replace consoles because it's that quality, and it has these same advantages of consoles. It's just easy. You plug in a controller, you turn the thing on, it works. You don't have to configure any settings or anything. It's a lot cheaper. It's a lot cheaper. And I think for people who are not as serious about gaming, it's just a simpler thing. It works, by the way, on the Galaxy Fold. I have a GameSir controller. You put it on the Galaxy Fold. It's wild. I actually think that's the coolest thing about it is you can get those little controller clips. Yeah, I clip it in. Put your mobile device right on the controller. It's nice. Yeah. All right, Mary Jo. I'm sorry. We veered into gaming a little bit again. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Oh, she's going to veer
Enterprise
right back
pick
into
is about gaming.
What? Enterprise pick of the week.
So my enterprise pick of the week, I have one word for you: war games. Not reindeer games, war games.
What?
Yes. Microsoft is building a studio called Studio Alpha that is all about taking Azure and taking other Microsoft enterprise technologies and mushing them together with virtualized gaming technology for simulations such as the ones done in wargaming and also in retail. Like this is not just a government thing, although when you think of war games, you think of DoD, obviously, but this also applies to a number of commercial businesses who need to do strategic planning but visualized. And so they are creating a whole gaming initiative, which they call their serious gaming initiative, not to be confused with their frivolous gaming initiatives, that is meant for enterprises and the government. And it has to do with bringing some of their gaming technology. I'm not sure exactly which gaming technologies, but some of their technologies they perfected with Xbox and the Xbox services, like Xbox Cloud probably, to the enterprise. How weird is that?
Yeah. Why?
Why? Because number one, Microsoft, unlike some of their tech competitors, is not conflicted about selling to the government. Microsoft is very open that they are all about selling to the government and to the DoD. I mean, look at the Jedi contract, right? And one of the main things that the people in the DoD need is a revamp of how wargaming is done. Like if you look at how the DoD does wargaming now, it looks like they're playing a board game in a situation room, right? Like they've got pieces, they've got like maps on the ground and stuff. And I'm like, no. There is a technological way to make this a better experience. We have the technology. It's called cloud, right? And this is what they're doing. They're bringing Microsoft cloud technologies and simulation and virtualization to this whole idea of strategic planning and wargaming.
Very interesting.
I know, right?
Wow. Mary Jo, wargamer.
Yes.
Wargamer.
I know. Well, I got to say, I got a nice lead on that from the Walking Cat, who posted a very interesting screenshot that had a Studio Alpha logo in a little triangle, and it said, "This is so Microsoft. Listen to their charter. We are empowering organizations to solve complex planet scale, massive data problems using simulations and AI, run in the cloud, and visualized using gaming technology." That's their.
Oh well, that's interesting.
Yes.
Shall we
We're
play
enabling
a
people
game?
to have longer score streaks.
No, I think using Minecraft to simulate nuclear meltdowns makes perfect sense.
Well, you know what?
It's just
what
like the war
to
game
me
thing.
made
There is no winner.
No, think about Flight Simulator, you guys. Like,
perfect.
Okay, it's a game, but like, what if you're really like using real world maps to simulate flying over other countries and past the Space Needle and over nuclear reactors? Who knows, right?
Honestly, if they could somehow harness all the farming and building I've done in Minecraft and put it to good use, I'd be happy about it.
Right?
You know, maybe connect it up to a robot that's actually farming.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm planning.
So I didn't ask Chris about it.
Carbon credits for the cows that you were not putting out to the world.
Yeah.
Exactly. No, I didn't ask Chris about Studio Alpha because I'm like, oh, he's just going to say, oh, there goes Mary Jo with another code name. But I'm pretty sure on this one. I've got some good leak on this.
Very interesting. Very interesting.
Yeah. That's funny.
But it's not all. There's another enterprise pick from Mary Jo Foley.
So Microsoft is doing, given the pandemic, they're doing some interesting changes around certifications. So as of early February 2021, people who have what they call a role-based or a specialty certification are going to be able to get a free renewal for that by going through Microsoft Learn, their Learn channel inside of Microsoft Docs. And instead of having to like sit for an exam, you're going to actually be able to complete an online exam on your own time anytime within 6 months of when your certification expires.
Awesome.
Yeah. So this is all good news. The one thing they're doing that some people may not think is good news, but I understand why they're doing it, is they're changing how long the role-based certification is valid. So starting in June 2021, you're going to have to renew this every year Right now it's every 2 years. But they said the reason we're doing this is because of how quickly technology is changing, especially in the cloud.
Yeah.
Internet speed.
Yeah. So, yeah. I think this is mostly good news. I think for people who have been worried about, how am I going to get my certification done with the pandemic and such, this gives you a very nice way to be able to do that online and at a better and more leisurely pace. So stay tuned for more details. February 2021, they said they'll be posting more information on that.
Now, another change of pace. We're going to throw you a curve. Stephanie's been at it again. She's been working in the pantry and has come up with a new beverage pick.
This is weird, but we have a neighbor who's a friend of ours whose mother, who we refers to as Nana, sends him giant containers of citrus from Florida as gifts.
Yeah, my grandmother used to do that. Harry and David.
Right, but that's the first time he texted us. He says, "Hey, I got all these grapefruits and lemons
giant
and whatever."
Texas grapefruits. Yeah.
They're
He's like,
so
"Does
good.
anybody want any of this stuff?" And
really
I was like,
good.
"What is this? The 1960s?" But actually,
next it's
my
the
wife
summer
has-
sausage from Hickory Farms.
right. So anyway, we get this stuff pretty regularly. So my wife always takes as much of it as he'll give us, and she makes grapefruit and lemon and orange juice out of it, and then uses that in cocktails because
That's delicious.
And when you think about like winter cocktails, as far as my wife's concerned, the holy trinity of ingredients is grapefruit juice, whiskey, and maple syrup.
Ooh.
Which is dissolved maple syrup. But and then this drink, in honor of Matt's Nana, she named "If Nana Only Knew
What's
What Matt
going on
was
with her grapefruit.
citrus."
If Nana's
so
on
it's 2 ounces.
statins, she can't drink this because grapefruit
Right.
is forbidden. But okay,
Whiskey, maple syrup, lemon juice.
This would kill my Nana.
There's egg white is the most critical.
Egg white. What? And that gives it a frothy.
Yes,
frothy
gives it a
thing.
foam.
Yeah.
The other thing, did I mention this last time we did a cocktail? I might have, but we were in a restaurant and someone delivered these perfect cocktails with the little ice floaters on the top, and we asked her how she did it. And the way you do that is you overfill the shaker with ice. And you put just jam as much ice as that you can and shake it until you can't hold the thing anymore because it's so cold. And when you pour it out, it will have that perfect ice flow
Very
effect on the top.
clever.
That's just so perfect.
Very clever. I can't wait to run home and try it.
Tips and tricks.
Yeah.
It's a good one.
I guess you could
It's a
replace the
classic.
grapefruit juice with orange juice if you.
Blood orange juice would be
Would be
nice.
delicious, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Not so tangy as grapefruit juice.
No.
Also, not so poisonous.
That's what this is. A lot of these cocktails are kind of, you've got that kind of puckery lemon effect and then the sweetness of
The
maple.
sweetness.
They kind of balance each other out, but they give it flavor. It's nice.
It's got the tang of grapefruit juice and the sweetness of maple. And if
Yeah, just
Nana
like me and
only
Mary
knew.
Jo, the sweetness and the tang.
So for the people watching, they've been able to watch, see this, but I will read this recipe.
I'll put this in the notes.
Put it on the notes too. 2 ounces of grapefruit juice, 2 ounces of whiskey. I just bought some Angel's Envy bourbon. I guess I could use that. An ounce.
But you know what? Don't put expensive stuff in a
Put cheap
cocktail,
stuff
right?
in. Yeah.
Box whiskey, whatever.
Yeah. Box whiskey in a box. Is there such a thing? Half an ounce of maple syrup, but you do 50-50 maple syrup dissolved in water. So it's really half an ounce with
Unless you
water.
want the spoon to stick up in it after you're done.
An ounce of lemon juice, 3 to 4 drops of Angostura bitters, and egg white. You shake all the ingredients together. She says without ice, but I think you're saying fill up the shaker with ice.
I'm sorry. I was speaking in general. This particular cocktail, she does not make with ice. That's true. But, a lot of them are kind of like a frozen,
Yeah.
I was speaking, sorry, I was just speaking generally. I didn't know this particular one, but yeah.
You shake it without ice to get the egg white foamy, and then you
can't
add
really have
ice.
foamy and
Right.
and the effect I was talking about. Sorry.
Shake it again. Serve over ice in a whiskey tumbler. Garnish with a maraschino cherry. And you have an If Nana Only Knew. I love Stephanie has a real knack for this, I have to say.
She does.
Very impressed. Very impressed. If you start a whiskey box service, Punter Joe in the chat room says he will
if you go to the state liquor store, Leo, you'll
get
find
out of the state liquor.
The boxed liquors.
The boxed liquors.
right as you walk in the door.
Yeah. No grapefruit juice allowed for me, but I could put blood orange. It'd be good.
Mm-hmm. Oh, there you go. That'd be great.
Yeah. Thank you, Paul Thurrott. Thank you, Mary Jo Foley. Wow, what a show this was. This is a Christmas miracle every year. Chris Capossela. Next week, of course, we're getting nigh on to Christmas. It'll be Festivus, so we aren't going to do a show. We'll do a Best of Us. Make sure you... Next week is the Best of Us.
Next week, I know.
Oh, yeah. Look at that.
The 23rd. And then...
are we doing one on the 30th?
We'll do one on the 30th, because... it's New Year's Eve.
We'll do predictions or something.
Yeah,
fun.
we could look back at the terrible year and a look ahead to the great new year.
Yeah.
Something like that. So have a wonderful holiday.
Yeah, you too.
Are you doing anything? Everybody's just staying home, right?
Can't go anywhere.
Can't do anything.
My kids are coming home. That's it.
That's nice. So your daughter went off to North Carolina, right? UNC.
Yep.
And it's been okay.
Yeah.
No, not a big COVID issue there. Everything's going all right.
No, not at her campus. They had problems at other UNC campuses.
I remember seeing that, and I was worried. So that was somebody. Okay,
I know. Well, they basically said, "Look, you saw what happened over here. If you want to screw up the whole school year, I guess have parties and stuff. But her school has done well, so that's nice.
So she's able to attend classes and everything.
She only attends one class in person. The other one's a virtual, but she's living in the dorm, and she had the option to stay home after Thanksgiving, but she went back. Her roommate stayed home.
Nice.
I mean,
so she has the room.
Honestly, for her, given the year, at best case scenario, I would say.
Yeah, I would agree.
I mean, given
glad she could do that. And you're not going to Rhode Island, Mary Jo. You're staying.
Nope.
Staying put.
Can't go.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, Rhode Island did great at first.
I know, and then they did terribly.
Boom! I know that's where Mom is, and I worry so much.
Like England, it looks like that now. Europe, had done great, and not so much anymore. And I think that's the nature of the beast here.
We're going to send Tom Cruise around yelling at people.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. He must be so intimidating. Was he like 4'8", 4'9"?
Yeah, but I'm telling you, you don't want Tom Cruise yelling at you. I think it'd be scary. Christian Bale would be worse, but at the same time.
Yes, exactly. You wouldn't hear Chris Bale coming. You would just have a bat.
Yeah, right. Well, I hope you two have a wonderful holiday. Thanks to Chris Capossela for being here.
Sure.
Hope all of you, our family.
Did you say?
I'm staying home too. Yeah, nothing. Just the three of us.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
We have a ham that we got for Thanksgiving, but there weren't enough people.
I got half a pig if you need any extra.
I know you do. We're going to just heat up the ham and
nice.
Have a quiet Christmas. We drove around to see the Christmas lights a couple of nights ago because people still do that, but we didn't, can't get out of the car.
Can't do anything else.
Can't do anything else.
Yeah.
So that's okay. The light is at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah.
And we're going to do a very special, come around April, we're going to do a very special Windows Weekly. All three of us will get a vaccine at the same time.
On air.
On air. Ow! Ow! It'll be great. Can't wait. It's going to be a lot of fun.
You people with your science.
Thank you, Paul. Paul Thurrott is at thurrott.com, THURROTT.com. His books, The Field Guide to Windows 10, all those great posters, available at leanpub.com. Mary Jo Foley is at allaboutmicrosoft.com, her ZDNet blog. Have a happy holiday, you two.
Yeah, you too.
We'll see you in 2 weeks on Windows Weekly, last show of the year.
Want more Twit? Check out Tech News Weekly, twit.tv/TNW. Tech News Weekly is a show where Jason Howell and I bring the latest and greatest interviews to you from the people making and breaking the tech news. twit.tv/TNW.